How many of you have ever asked yourselves the question, what is the purpose of my life? Raise your hand, please. Yeah, so have I. And I wondered this for a very long time, and I've become more clear on it now, but it wasn't always that way. For many years, I really struggled to feel like my life had any purpose and meaning, and it all started when I was young. Around 5 years old, my parents, they got a divorce, and for the next 5 or 6 years, I bounced back and forth between them because they couldn't decide who was going to keep me. I remember at this point in time kind of developing this feeling that they didn't want me. Around the time of junior high, I remember really wanting to fit in and make friends with these kids, but it just seemed like they couldn't take to me. I really struggled to make friends when I was a kid. And around 8th grade, I started using drugs and alcohol because I figured, if I have drugs, if I have alcohol, these kids that I know of that use drugs and alcohol, they'll probably want to hang out with me. So I started smoking weed, drinking alcohol, doing drugs when I was about 14 years old. By the time I was 16, I had developed a methamphetamine addiction. By the time I was 18, I was homeless on the streets. My parents kicked me out. They didn't want anything to do with me. And so I used to walk the streets having no idea where I was going to sleep, what I was going to eat. I would steal from grocery stores, steal food just to eat. I would steal bottles of alcohol to either drink or to trade for drugs. Now, one night I was staying in a hotel room with this crack dealer, and there was a knock on the door at about midnight. And the door busted open, and these two men walked in who were wearing suits, but their faces were all tattooed, and their heads were tattooed. And I watched them take this guy by force, this drug dealer, and shove him in the car that they had pulled up to the door. And they told me that if I tried to leave, they were going to kill me. And then they left. And I just remember pacing around, just, what am I going to do? Oh my God, I can't believe this just happened. And I realized that I can't stay here. I'm a loose end. These guys are going to kill me. And so I made a run for it. And I ran to the next town over where my grandmother was recovering from a stroke. And I just hit rock bottom. I just collapsed on the floor of that hospital room and cried. And I just asking myself, what have I become? And so I decided that next morning, to call my dad and say, Dad, please let me come home. I'm going to die out here. I'm going to join the military. With 2 weeks, boom, I was off to boot camp. Now, the military was a good experience for me for the most part. I made a lot of good friends. I learned some discipline, but I still struggled. And I was planning on re-enlisting, but when I was in Afghanistan, a vehicle that I was driving was hit by a roadside bomb, and I almost died. And I realized, I need to get out, go back into the civilian world. So a few months later, I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps, moving back to California, where I started going to school, got a good job, and from the outside, it looked like things were going really well, but on the inside, I was lost. I was still struggling, still felt inadequate, still felt like there was something wrong with me. So one day, I met this man who saved my life. I was studying at a coffee shop, and he approached me, and he struck up conversation with me, and I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience where you meet someone, there's something special about them. There was something unique about this guy. So we started talking. The next day, he invited me over to his house. And I remember, getting there, driving over there, parking in front of his house, opening up my phone and texting some of my friends like, hey, I just got to this guy's house. I think he's cool. But if you don't hear from me in like 2-3 hours, here's the address, here's the time, call the police, send him this way. Who knows what happened. But luckily, by the grace of God, that's not how it went down. And John actually became a mentor to me. And this man who had made millions of dollars working as a coach and as a consultant and helping people find meaning and purpose in their lives, he took me under his wing. And I worked for years with John. But I still struggled to really feel like my life had any purpose or meaning. I still was lost. And then one day, I asked him, I said, John, how do I find purpose in life? How do I find my purpose? And I'll never forget what he said, and this is what I really hope to leave with you. See, this man who had made a fortune helping people turn their lives around, the most humble man I'd ever met, he said, David, the way that you find purpose in life is you take a look at your life. You take a look at everything that you've ever been through, the good, the bad, the ugly, and you ask yourself the question, what has all of this been preparing me to do? And as I began to take this approach, to look at my life from this perspective, things began to change. I started to realize, wow, I've been through all these experiences that have been painful and hard and difficult, but I'm still alive. And I started to realize that, the reason I went through these things was so I could help other people. And so I started changing the way that I lived my life. I started focusing on the things that I had done that could help me out, that could cause me to make a difference in other people's lives. One of the most important things I did was started hanging out with different kinds of people. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm a Toastmasters, is because I know that the people that are in this room, there's something special about you. There's something different. You're not cut from the same cloth. And so it's an honor to be here with you guys. I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I just want to thank you for giving me the chance to come up here and tell you a little bit about myself. Thank you.